Breaking this hour, senators were just voting on a second stopgap bill to fund the government. This is the Republicans' proposed funding bill. It's expected to fail. Last hour, the Democrats' proposed funding bill failed in the chamber. Barring some kind of miracle, in less than 5 hours, the government will shut down. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that roughly 750,000 federal employees could be furloughed per day if a shutdown happens. Meanwhile, Donald Trump says he intends to use this shutdown period to bypass Congress and impose his authoritarian vision on the American people.
We can do things during the shutdown that are irreversible, that are bad for them and irreversible by them, like cutting vast numbers of people out, cutting things that they like, cutting programs that they like.
We can confirm now that second bill has failed. And according to Congressman Brendan Boyle, the ranking member of the House Budget Committee, neither he nor his staff were able to identify a legal authority that would allow the president to conduct mass firings during a shutdown. Joining us now, Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware, hot off that vote. He is a member of the Senate Appropriations Committee.
Senator Coons, the Constitution gives Congress the power of the purse. As Alicia just noted, we checked with the Budget Committee. The president is talking about doing something that he does not have the power to do. I would argue that is illegal. One, what is Democrats' plan here? And two, just take us through what to expect over the next couple of hours.
Okay. Thank you, Simone. Great to be on with you again. First, to the point you just made, President Trump threatens to do all sorts of things that he doesn't have the legal authority to do. And in many cases, attorneys general from across the country have taken him to court and won, rolling back a lot of what DOJ did, rolling back cuts and cancellations that have impacted Americans' health care and that have impacted employment in programs that are critical to keeping our country safe and strong. What's going to happen in the next couple of hours? Senators will continue to talk to each other about whether there's any off-ramp, but Democrats are united in seeing this as a fight about health care. President Trump and the Republican majority in the House and Senate have cut tens of billions of dollars out of things that keep Americans healthy, and they've changed the law in ways that's going to increase health insurance costs starting next month, in some cases doubling them. So Republicans I've been talking to recognize that they've done too much, that they're hurting Americans, and it's going to hurt their health care. But they're not willing to make commitments quickly enough or clearly enough to change direction for us to be comfortable that that's good enough for us to keep the government open. If we go ahead and just keep the government open without any change in direction, millions of Americans will get sicker and poorer as the changes to health care get worse and worse. Look, President Trump ran on reducing costs. He's imposing tariffs that are jacking up the prices of drugs that millions of Americans take. Look, Donald Trump ran on reducing prices. He's cut the insurance affordability for tens of millions of Americans more. President Trump ran on making our country healthy again, and he's cut billions of dollars out of the organizations like the National Institutes of Health and the Centers for Disease Control that help keep us healthy. He's not delivering on those promises, and Democrats are standing up to him and demanding that we reduce or reverse some of these terrible cuts to Americans' health care.
Senator, the president also ran on getting rid of Obamacare. And essentially by increasing that insurance affordability or decreasing insurance affordability for millions of Americans. That's effectively what Republicans will do. They will have reduced or at least to their liking eliminated a very, very bad health care bill and not have to worry about replacing it with anything. Which for me, if this is the fight that this budget is all about, how then do you message to the American people so that when at 12:01 a.m. tomorrow morning, the government shuts down and all of a sudden the things that people need and try to access over the next few days, that they fully understand we are in this space, not because of Chris Coons, senator from Delaware, not because of, Democratic senator from Florida, but because of what Republicans failed to do, and that is come to the table, lay out an argument for what they wanted, address the arguments the Democrats put forward for what they wanted, for what you wanted, and come to a level of compromise so that millions of Americans won't have to suffer.
Michael, you know me. I'm someone who works across the aisle and is always willing to negotiate a better path forward. This fight is simple. It's about Democrats standing up and fighting for Americans' health care, for seeing the direction we're headed and the ways in which President Trump and Republicans in Congress are making decision after decision that makes Americans sicker and poorer and demanding that we change direction. There's going to be some real pain as a result of the government shutdown.
Joining us now, Punchbowl News co-founder and MSNBC political contributor Jake Sherman, MSNBC political analyst and former press secretary to Speakers John Boehner and Paul Ryan, Brendan Buck, and former CBO director and president of the American Action Forum, Douglas Holtz-Eakin. So, I mean, here's how I was talking about this morning, Jake. For years now, we have had politicians get more partisan, refuse to compromise, make this, a blood sport between my team versus yours. I don't want to say blood sport. Make this a competition between my team versus yours. You've seen them campaign on problems only to come into office and not solve those problems, leading the American people to think, what is the government good for? And then when you have somebody campaigning on nothing works, we got to blow it all up, you shouldn't be surprised when you have an American public that's cheering that on, or that at least looks at both parties and says, I'm not going to blame one of you. I'm going to blame both of you.
Yes, I agree with what you're saying, but this entire institution revolves around leverage now more than ever, because the Congress doesn't work like it did in the 1970s or 1980s or before that, where you'd get a cross-section of lawmakers who think something should be taken care of and they work together, they get it done, and that's that. That's not the way Congress works anymore. There are a series of leverage points, either natural or self-created throughout the year, and lawmakers take advantage of them. And by the way, J.D. Vance is not the only one who's been a phony on this issue. I mean, Republicans are now saying, let's negotiate with the government opened. They caused a shutdown in 2013 to repeal Obamacare. They caused a shutdown in 2018 into 2019 for the border wall when Donald Trump was president, by the way. So no one is intellectually honest on this. And I'll just say this now, because I think you're going to ask this in a second. There is zero chance, zero, count that, zero, that there is going to be a deal between now and midnight to keep the government open. Not going to happen. The government is going to shut down in a few hours. The House isn't even here. So absent Chuck Schumer having some sort of revelation in the next couple hours that he wants to abandon all of his demands and pass a clean government funding bill that the House has already passed, this is not going to be averted, this government shutdown.
Brendan, I think for the first time you might actually agree with Jake Sherman.
He does, Katie, and it feels good to be right. I just will say that.
Which I don't agree with. Broken clock every once in a while. Look, it's easy, to play a clip of J.D. Vance and talk about Republicans who wanted to shut down the government before. You could also easily play clips of Democrats saying, let's just keep the government open. What's the deal?
That was my point. That was my point in talking about this today. People look at Washington and they think this place is a hot mess. Why bother even getting involved in it? Because they don't actually want to work together.
Well, I think hopefully the lesson that we will learn at the end of this is that the only thing that's sort of consistent throughout here is that nobody ever gets anything out of a government shutdown. I think both sides need to recognize this is not a tool for getting any type of legislative outcome. It's just not. Now, it may be a tool for messaging. And it seems like that's what Democrats are probably more likely to do. They want to talk about the issues that are important to them. But what I would tell you with my experience, having been through 3 of these, is that whatever the subject matter that you're talking about tends to fall to the background once you're actually in a government shutdown. The government shutdown becomes the story once you actually get there. And I imagine they're going to learn that lesson the same way we learned it in 2013, we learned it in 2018, and Chuck Schumer learned it in 2018 when he led a government shutdown. They always end the same way. And so, yes, they're pointless, but it feels like we haven't done one in a while, so we have to remind ourselves of that.
Okay, let's play Minority Leader Chuck Schumer responding to Majority Leader Thune today on Capitol Hill.
I just heard something that Trump said. Here's what he said. We can do things during the shutdown that are irreversible and bad for them, and irreversible like cutting vast numbers of people out. Well, there it is. Trump admitted himself that he is using Americans as political pawns. He is admitting that he is doing the firing of people if, God forbid, it happens. He's using Americans as pawns, as I said. Democrats do not want a shutdown. We stand ready to work with Republicans to find a bipartisan compromise, and the ball's in their court. When he says he will do things, he is taking ownership. He is taking ownership. It's just like in his first term when he said he will own the shutdown.
In a sense, the Republican discourse hasn't changed that much. They're continuing to blame Democrats. But this is my reading. Trump and his cronies sound more desperate. Because before, it's almost like they knew a shutdown was coming. It's imminent. They knew it was coming. But they also were confident, seemingly, in their ability to convince you and, the regular American voter that it was the Democrats' fault, that the Democrats did it. It was Schumer, it was Jeffries, look, they probably blame Obama somehow, right? It was Barack Obama's fault, whoever. Hillary Clinton did it again, right? And it's their fault that a shutdown happened, not our fault. Even though we control the House, we have the presidency, and we have the Senate. We have all three branches. It's incumbent upon you to actually make a deal and actually find some common ground with Democrats in both houses of Congress. And now that it's failing, it looks like they're realizing, maybe they've seen polling that we haven't seen, maybe they're hearing from constituents, maybe they're hearing rumbles from, Republicans in swing districts and in swing states up for a re-election, saying, I'm getting scared. My constituents are letting me know. Local media is letting me know that they're blaming us. They are blaming us for this. Maybe not 100%, but they are giving us the lion's share of the blame because we're in charge. We were elected to get it done. We were elected because they threw out Biden because they wanted something different, but they didn't want this. They don't want what they're getting in this moment. And you could see the cog turning in Republican heads real time. Our BS isn't working this time. It's not working. We're not going to reap an electoral whirlwind. And indeed, it's going to hurt us in a lot of swing areas. For example, Virginia, where Republicans after Biden won saw a lot of success. Remember, they elected Youngkin there, right? There, with all the workers that have already been affected by DOGE getting laid off again by the Trump budget shutdown, that's only going to make things worse. Donald, you wanted chaos. You're getting chaos.